Okay, welcome all astrology family. We're going to talk about Pluto. Pluto is power. Pluto is permanent. Pluto is the co-ruler of the sign Scorpio. Think of the 8th house when we talk about Pluto. The 8th house is deep. It is about energies that go to the soul layers. It is not surfacey, okay? When a person has Pluto aspected well in their chart, when I say well, it means they have trines with it, okay, or sextiles. If they have Pluto on top of something in their chart, like conjunct, Pluto adds its own power to that other aspect, to that other planet, to that other asteroid, whatever it might be. Sun, moon, Pluto's power intensifies. Intensity, good word for Pluto. Pluto's power, when we understand what it can do, because it's not on the surface, it can go down to layers and layers and layers. So it literally goes to the root level. When we think about us as human beings and dipping in to our root level, what is our root level? Our soul. That's our root level, because our physical body is the vehicle. It is something which the soul steps into and lives, but the soul is endless. The soul constantly lives. It doesn't need the body. It needs the body to experience life on the 3D, right, here on Earth. But once it's done with that body, it ascends, it leaves, it elevates, and it goes elsewhere. But it doesn't actually end. That's why in all the ancient teachings, right, before organized religion, the common knowledge, the common belief was that energy is eternal. There is constant life. It is only limited when we focus specifically just on the material, the 3D. That part is not everlasting. That part does fade over time. So I am going to now dive deep into a chart, and we're going to talk a little bit about Pluto. We're going to go further into Pluto. We're going to explain a couple of questions that we received from a viewer. So what I'm going to start doing is picking out questions from viewers that I think would likely help others as well. By answering them, I will then display a video. And I'm going to break it down in a way where we're looking at a chart. I'll have my little famous pointer, right? We'll be pointing at it, right? I've graduated from the lighter to a pointer. And then we can break this stuff down and see it on paper, see it astrologically, to have a greater understanding, to pull more meaning from it, and then to apply it to your own chart, okay? So if you are ready, come with me and let's dive deep into your all astrology. All right, so we're going to take a quick look at a chart which has the dates February 7th, 2020. All right, there was a past event, and this is a chart from a viewer who had some questions and major concerns, actually, because of the current Pluto going retrograde. Current Pluto standing still like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then moving retrograde by the 25th. So those days before the retrograde movement, okay, Pluto and any planet that's about to move retrograde, it actually has this appearance that it's standing still. And so anytime a planet does that, anytime there's no movement occurring, it becomes concentrated. So think about a flame, right? Think you've got a flame candle lit, and you have the ability to pass your hand over that flame. Well, what happens when you stop your hand over that flame, right? It gets burned. The energy becomes concentrated. The flame sits and focuses like a laser on one spot, right? And becomes much more intense. And in Pluto's case, the word intense is a Pluto word, right? It's a Plutonian word because Pluto is extremely powerful. So if Pluto stands still, you're going to feel it, right? If you're, depending upon your layers of sensitivity, you could definitely have felt it on the 21st of April. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, it was extremely obvious. 25th, it started to move retrograding. Today, I believe it's the 26th I'm recording on. So it's starting to move retro. It's literally now has some momentum It's not moving as fast because Pluto is such a slow planet, okay? It never moves fast. So what we're going to do is address the questions. Some of the questions were, how fast does Pluto move, or how slow? What is Pluto's timing? And that's not really a simple one-word answer, but what I can do is give you a cycle. Pluto's cycle, depending upon basically all the planets, depending upon what sign they're moving through, it has everything to do with how fast, right? How fast or slow they go. Now, lots of these planets also experience retrogrades. So there are times when, like, I'll give you an example. If you were to look up what's Jupiter's speed, how long does it take Jupiter to transit through a sign? Typically, Jupiter takes about a year to transit through a sign. Okay. However, I know for certain back when Jupiter was in Virgo, it took a year and a half roughly to transit through the Virgo sign. Okay. Well, Virgo is Earth, and Virgo is like details, right? Virgo, it will emphasize the smaller things. Okay. Now, if you think about Jupiter, Jupiter is air. It's not Earth. It's the exact opposite. So when we think about that, the square that occurs, right? It's a square because you've got Virgo energy and you've got Jupiter energy. And yes, I'm pointing at Sagittarius, but Sagittarius's ruler is Jupiter. So typically Virgo and Jupiter energy, Virgo and Sagittarius energy, 90 degrees away, right? And that's a square. So all these things go into play. You know, when we look at it in just a down-to-earth, practical, easy-to-understand way, those factors play a big part. Now, Jupiter, when it goes through typically any other sign, I shouldn't say every other sign, but typically they'll say 1 year to transit a sign. Now, when we talk about Pluto, it's going to take Pluto roughly, if you were to look it up, it says anywhere from 14 to 30 years that Pluto will be transiting a sign. Right now it's the year 2020, and we have about 4 more years left of Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. All right. Now, for this chart, I'm going to give out the birth information. Date of June 20th, 1990. Birth time of 4:52 p.m. This is Toledo, Ohio. If you're new here, so just comment your birth digits below. All right, so we're going to take a look at what was going on in this native's life. Native is the person who owns the chart without giving away their name. They had some major stuff going on. This was February. Now we have to look back and think about January of 2020, right? January 2020, I think it was January 12th, January 13th. We had Saturn and Pluto literally holding hands at 22, almost 23 degrees, okay? Now this is February. And what happens? What do you see in this person's chart? Well, they natally, right, in their natal chart, they have a Saturn at 2342. See here the transits? We've got Pluto and Saturn. They're at the same area. Holy crap, super strong stuff. We could go over here, look at the detail. So if we look for Saturn, right, the transiting Saturn says that it was at 2544, okay? And then we have the transiting Pluto at 2336. Now, if we look at their natal planets, their natal Saturn's at 2342, which means Pluto was sitting right on top of this person's natal Saturn. And so this is this. Pluto is sitting right on their Saturn. It's a difference of, I think, maybe 10 seconds. Or something. The minutes are identical. The degrees are identical. Did I say the minutes? I said seconds. I might have meant minutes. 2342 and Pluto was 2336. Okay, so the minutes were very close. This is right before Pluto actually moved and became exactly conjunct their natal Saturn. This was, days before. In the slower moving planets, you really pay attention to those minutes. Okay, because they're such slow planets. The minutes become days. February 7th, okay, what else was going on in this person's chart? If we take a close look at the planet Uranus, okay? The planet Uranus at 757, we see something on there, all right? We see Pallas Athena conjunct Uranus at 757. So this person had expressed they had some difficulties going on in their life at that time. Actually, they had major things going on, and that's their concern. Here we are in April, and Pluto's gone retrograde. And so the most recent video that was put out was stating, hey, you know, take a look at the last 6 months of your life. You might be revisiting some of the same issues, okay? Now, they're not going to be identical. This is important to understand because these aren't the only planets in our chart. These aren't the only planets up in the sky. You have all these other things happening, okay? You've got all of this that's going on, all right? And so this was February. They had Saturn and Pluto, the transiting Saturn and Pluto up in the sky sitting on their natal Saturn. Now, 23, 42, 23 degrees, right? 23, 24 degrees, actually, because Saturn's like, what did we say Saturn was at? We see Saturn transit was at 25, 44, which is almost 26 degrees. So let's see where the squares were for them, all right? So we know a square is 90 degrees away, right? So it's the cardinals, like energies, are the square. Cardinal, 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 cardinal. That's the great cross, okay? The cardinal cross. They have a few things up there in the opposing energy, but they have nothing beyond 20 degrees in the opposing energy. They just have their Chiron and Jupiter at 16 and 17, and that's a big deal in itself, right? We're talking about Cancer energy, emotions, and they have Chiron there, so deep emotional things that probably go back to lifetimes about family issues. And certainly childhood. When we look at that's the opposition. Let's look and see if we can find anything that was squaring at the time, right? At this date. This person had a significant event in their life around February 10th. So on February 10th, likely Pluto would have been exactly conjunct, right? Right down to that minute with their Saturn. So let's go to the square. Well, we look and we see by transit it was Eris. All right, Eris was at 23 degrees. Now Eris is in Aries, so Eris is the feminine voice. Okay, if it's in the 6th house, which is your house of your health, definitely has to do with your body because it's Aries energy. Aries isn't just self, but it's my body. Okay, so we've got Eris in Aries in the 6th house, right? Then we go to the other side to look and see what else was going on. And look, we're over here. We've got Spica, a fixed star, okay, which is going to be here at this 23 degrees Libra for a nice amount of time. These fixed stars move. In case you can't see it, it's denoted, you know, the glyph isn't, it's just writing on the website that I've used. They put SPI, so you can see that. This right here is Juno, all right? Juno is considered our love, okay? It's our love. This Juno was really close to the Spica. Those are at 23. The Spica is literally at 24 degrees. So there's this really uncomfortable T-square. Juno and Spica in Libra, squaring natal Saturn, Pluto and transiting Saturn together, squaring Eris in Aries, in the 6th house of health, Aries, right? Our body. Now let's see if there was anything else that was going on because this was a really big event in their life. Typically a T-square like this, yeah, this is going to be really uncomfortable. When we want to dive deeper into these aspects, we look at this. We look at Aries. The rule of Aries is Mars. Well, where is their natal Mars? Well, look where their natal Mars is, in their 5th house. What does the 5th house represent? Right? The 5th house represents our creativity, our ability to create. The 5th house is our joy, our romance, our partners, all right? It's also our children, all right? Mars is there. The physical body's ability to produce, to create, okay? Interesting. So then we go to the other side of the T-square, right? Spica. It's in Venus. It's in Libra, right? Ruled by Venus. Well, let's go see where Venus is. Natal Venus in this person's chart. Their natal Venus is up there in their Taurus energy in their 7th house. This is how I love. Values. Fixed values on what I love. Taurus is fixed earth energy. Okay? Taurus can be very stubborn, but very beautiful and peaceful. It likes things to sound good, to feel good, to look good, to taste good. Things that are nice and appealing. This is Taurus energy. So this gives you more information about this over here. So this person's values, significant one-on-one relationships, really, really important here. Really, really important. This is all going to play a role into this. There may be deep emotions involved, hidden emotions, because it's in the 12th house. This Libran energy at 24 degrees is in this person's 12th house. All right, so this speaks to the subconscious realm. This speaks to feelings, thoughts, emotions that you are not aware of. in terms of what you love and what your needs are, what your values are, okay? Values in a significant one-on-one relationship, what you value, right? We're going to this Taurus energy. Now, what else was going on at this time? There's a big factor that you can't readily see. It's hidden. Typically on charts, the north nodes are always printed. It's the south nodes that are hard to find, but don't forget about them. The north and the south node, these are the moon's nodes, all right? It would be, if we go down to the detail, it's printed up as, I always have a hard time finding it over here because it's so small. See that right under Pluto? See how tiny that is, right? It's labeled as the true node. Basically, it's the average of the north and the south node together, and so it prints up as the true node. I know somebody had asked that question once before. It's a really good question. So this T is the north node, and what's not printed is the south node. And how do you find the south node? It's the exact opposite of the north node. So if we look, their north node, their true node, is at 7 degrees, 751 Aquarian energy. This is important. During the transit, though, it was at 753 Cancer. And that's what we're looking for. Their transiting node, right there, is at 753 Cancer energy. So we go to the exact opposite, which would be 753 Capricorn energy, and look where that is. It's not printed, but in our mind's eye, we know that 753 is right here, conjunct Uranus. Surprises, shocks and surprises. The moon's nodes, what were they doing? We've got the north node, which is where you're headed, in Cancer. Okay, this is emotions, stability, what I need to be emotionally secure, where you're headed, figuring out what you need for your emotional security. It's tied to your unit, your tribe, your family, mom, being a mom, your mom, lineage, family heritage. Because you have Chiron here, this is a really big deal. It means that there's this ancestral emotional security tied to family, tied to motherhood, okay? And so this individual is likely going through and will be continue processing if there's any losses tied to this. But it's not just their own stuff they're processing. They're doing things that their ancestors had to deal with. And they are continuing the healing of that stuff because this is Chiron in Cancer, conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter blows it up and makes it really big. It's like, you know what, I want you to recognize there's this wound, this deep wound that was here before you became, an adult, right? This energy over here squares up. It's Cancer, right? Libra, Cancer. These are cardinal energies. So there is an unconsciousness about some of this stuff and this healing, and that's where you're headed. And now, right now, if I were to pull this chart up for present day, the North Node is literally about to enter Gemini energy. Okay, it's currently like wobbling between 0 and 1 degrees in Cancer. Okay, but you're going to be moving, it's going to be moving into the Gemini energy, which is siblings, which is our immediate environment, our community, our neighborhood, our trade, business, thinking, communication. It's going to be moving into there. And this will be conjunct your sun. You see that? You have a 2915 sun in Gemini, how you think. 29 degrees is a critical degree, and basically critical just simply is explaining that energy at 29 degree in any sign is more concentrated energy. So with the North Node there, how you think, how you communicate is going to be brought up. It's going to be highlighted. So this means you're going to have to be really diligent in your work in regards to the way you think and the thoughts in your head. Now, Cherokol is not far there, and what's going to happen is, guess what? Cherokol assists in healing. So when the North Node gets closer to that 27 degrees Gemini, there's going to be a nice healing that's coming. So it's patience, and stay optimistic and positive, and be tied into logic and rationale. Because the fear, right, this Pluto stuff, Pluto is retrograding and going backwards, all right? Now let's see what else was going on around February 7th. Okay, we pointed out the moon's nodes. Was anything squaring the moon's nodes? This would be a big deal because that would show us how this 757 Capricorn energy, what got triggered. Okay, a square 30 degrees away, right? 30, 60, I said square 30, it's 90. 30, 60, 90. Well, we see that Venus was going to very shortly be coming up to 7 degrees. Venus moves fast. Okay, She was going to then get to 1 degree, and then she was going to start trucking through the Aryan energy. So Venus, I didn't pull that up yet, but you see where Venus is. We also see Chiron is going to be part of this. Chiron's at 3 degrees here. Deepest emotional wounds about the body. It's also happening in the 5th house, which is my ability to create. Remember, folks, this is your ability to procreate as well. So when Venus starts pulling through here, Venus was likely conjunct. And look at that. By the 10th, look what happened. Venus was conjunct Chiron exactly. This is on February 10th. Venus pulled up to Chiron. I always like to show the energy a few days before, because depending upon a person's level of sensitivity, they know days before this stuff actually becomes conjunct. Exactly. That Chiron, what else was happening? Okay, let's go look at the other Cancer, because that would have been the other square. Well, this being at 3/4 degrees of Aries, which would mean we want to look at 3/4 degrees of Cancer, there's nothing there. There's nothing there by transit, but we do see their sun is like 4 degrees away, okay? It's an out of sign square. The sun's at 29 degrees Gemini, so it'd be an out of sign square, okay? And that's difficult. It's not just that one transit by itself that makes it difficult. It's all these factors involved that make it difficult. Now, we also have to pay attention to Mars always, because Mars, man, Mars is no joke. It's an activator. Wherever it goes, it triggers something to happen. And you see what Mars was doing here? Mars was triggering their natal galactic center, okay? And then Mars is pretty quick. It's not super slow. A few days later, Mars would have triggered the transiting galactic center. And the galactic center is a power point. It is the universal galaxy, right? It's the support, it's source, literally. So in other words, when Mars touches in on it, it's like it fuels up there and it becomes even stronger. So what was Mars going to be doing? What would Mars have been squaring? Let's see, maybe nothing. 30, 60, 90, okay? Mars would have been doing an out of sign square, definitely with that Chiron. Days later, it would have caught up to that Chiron. Venus moves faster, though. So Mars would have been a factor there. Although it's kind of big, it's kind of a wobbly square, I would say. Mars, you can usually give like a 2-degree orb only. But what else would have Mars been messing with? Specifically on this day, February 10th, let's go look at the square the other way. We've got Mars here. Let's go 30, 60, 90. There was nothing over here. Okay, nothing. And that's a good thing. However, the moon would have caught up with Mars shortly. This is on February 10th. The moon takes 2.5 days to go through a sign. So 2.5 days later, after February 10th, moon would have been here, right? Which means Mars is still in the latter degrees of this. The moon would have been emotions, right? And your ability to be logical and rational, right? And practical, that Virgo thinking. The moon would have gotten here and Mars would have squared it. And a flood of emotions at that point, because Mars is in Jupiter, right? And Jupiter adds to things. Mars is in Sag, Jupiter. Yeah, that's why I said that. All right, so there were many factors, there were many things going on at this time, making events complicated and difficult. I just pointed out all the things that weren't real obvious. I didn't even go in deep at all. I didn't even mention Saturn and Pluto, right? All of that, and then Saturn and Pluto. Pluto comes in and says we're making a change, and we make changes that are permanent and deep. It doesn't play games. And it was changing structures. And on this individual's life, this is in their 3rd house, all right? Messing with their structured thinking, right? Ability to have very organized thinking, but because Saturn is there natally by birth, okay? This is in your natal chart, and you have Neptune there. So typically, there can be moments of confusion, depending upon what's aspecting your Neptune. And there can be moments where the thinking shuts down because Saturn slows and restricts things, okay? So in other words, there may be certain times in your life where there are certain concepts that may take forever to get. It may be like, okay, why am I not getting this, right? If something squares your Saturn by transit, it all of a sudden, Saturn kicks in and says, nope, we're going to make this a slower process, right? But then when things are transiting and they add a trine, they add a benefit, an ease to your Saturn, it's like, oh my gosh, this was so easy. I picked up on this so easy. It was so quick to learn. It was so fast. And you've got air in your third house, which helps. Your north node is there. So there are times when you get these big abstract concepts because it's Aquarian energy, super highly intelligent Aquarian energy, okay? Now, Saturn conjunct Saturn, your Saturn return, all right? Saturn return is if you're not on your path, the universe says, we're going to get you on your path. We're going to put a big red stop sign up and say, no, you're not going that way. And you have to figure out a different way. That's what Saturn does. You know, typically I would say, well, we want to better understand this Capricorn energy, so we want to find out where's your natal Saturn, but your natal Saturn is in your third house. Remember, this is speaking, thinking, communicating. This is also siblings. Okay, our third house is our siblings. It's a house of communication and relating, okay? How you think, how you speak. This person who would love to learn. But this would not, this would be very disruptive. Very disruptive. And then Jupiter, all this stuff that happened, right? In December, we had like 6 planets here. Everybody was being stressed, for everybody, regardless of where this was for you. But for you, this is your thinking. So understanding that natally, when you look at your chart, 2342, natally, what does anything square your Saturn? 30, 60, 90? No, you don't have anything that squares it natally. Not that way. We go this way, 30, 60, 90. You have Spica, which is the 12th house, which is your unconscious thoughts. Now, Spica actually is a very, back in the day, what I've read up on Spica is sailors used to use Spica to light their way. It was kind of a protector of the night, protector from the seas. So Spica can be a really good energy. But either way, it is a square, but the whole point of that square is to make you aware of unconscious things, subconscious thoughts. And this is also your house of dreams, by the way. So this would be, the person who, if they really want to do their work, you got to try to track your dreams, do some journaling, okay? And now let's pull this up to speed, what the next Pluto conjunct Saturn is going to look like for you. Because for this person, they have it. So what we want to know is in their future, right? In 2020, like May of 2020, when this conjunction happens for them, where's everything else going to be? Stay tuned. Let's find out. All right, so here we are, July 14th, 2020. There's Pallas, Athena, Jupiter, Pluto, Chariklo, Saturn. I haven't talked a lot about Chariklo, but what we do need to know about Chariklo is she's the female. She is the divine feminine energy of Chiron, actually. And so Chiron being the wounded individual, they call him the wounded healer because it's through his wounds, recognizing his wounds, acknowledging them, working through them, he then is able to bring healing to others, right? Through his own hurts, through his own trials. He's able to share with others his experience, and therefore other people who are going through similar experiences having a relatable understanding with somebody who they know deeply understands what they've been through because it was the same thing, and says, hey, but I got through it, and this is how I dealt with it. This is how I got through it. Well, Chiron was able to do this because of this wonderful woman, this wonderful feminine energy, Chariklo, who was supporting him. She was his wife. And basically, the way she is described is a very subtle energy. It is the energy of observing. It is that individual who can't do the healing for you, but who can be present during the healing. Kind of like your rock, who's present during it, who's like, okay, I know this is going to be a rough road ahead, but I can sit with you through it. I can be there. And just her very presence brings healing. So understanding that Chariklo has been around during all of this crazy stuff in Capricorn, all the intense energies, right? Pluto standing still, dipping in on someone's Saturn, right? Having a Saturn at that degree is a big deal. And then having Pluto and Saturn there simultaneously, but Chariklo has been there all along. So if there's been things you've been able to observe that have been blessings, like, oh my God, this could have been so much harder, having the ability to be objective and to sit in something and to be able to watch and observe and somehow just find a silence within that. a peace, a stableness, reestablishing some sort of a structure. This is what Chiriclo is doing here in Capricorn energy. But let's find the transiting Pluto for this date, July 14th, 2020. Now this was to show the comparison of what happens when Pluto goes backwards and touches in on this person's natal Saturn. So their natal Saturn is at 2342. And the transiting Pluto, transits are in the green, is at 2347. Now Pluto's retrograding, so this will be days, literally just days before it gets down to 23 to 2342. It's at 2347, right? So in the slower planets, it's the minutes we pay attention to. And so this is days in advance. Pluto, right, is right there. There's their natal Saturn. Yeah. So Pluto will touch in on their Saturn exactly. The good news in all of this is the transiting Saturn by this date has begun its retrograde. It begins its retrograde in May, okay? And it dips in July, it dips back into the Capricorn energies, okay? But the transiting Saturn at this time, when we go to the fine print here, the transiting Saturn is at 29.9. It is at a critical degree in Capricorn energy. So July is going to be a big month because of the 29 degree, right? The last time we had something, the last time Saturn was at 29 degree, well, that's when, you know, we started really hearing about the COVID-19 stuff. We really, you know, it's a critical degree. So again, this brings an additional testing because there's Saturn is at this intense mark of 29. Saturn slows things down. Saturn sets up rules and restrictions, okay? Now, the good news is that Saturn, at no time will Saturn's retrograde ever touch Pluto's retrograde. And when I say they won't touch, meaning they'll never match up exactly. Saturn goes back to 2520. Now, this is good news for this person because they already had a Saturn return. They already lived through it. They survived. But this retrograding Saturn will never go back to 2342 for them, okay? Not in 2020. It definitely will not touch, all right? There is a second Saturn return, okay, which happens typically when someone's around 60 years of age. So that's when Saturn goes around the entire chart, right, and makes its way back to here. But for right now, 2020, you're all good. Saturn's going to get back to 2520. It's going to stand still. So again, when a planet stands still, it's going to feel stronger on that time. But then it'll start moving direct again. That's two pieces of really great news. Saturn will never touch your natal Saturn, and it only goes back to 25, whereas Pluto retrogrades all the way back to 22 degrees. So Pluto will touch your Saturn because it goes beyond 2342. It goes back to 22. It goes back to 2229 to be exact. So this date I pulled up because this is when this transiting Pluto is conjunct your natal Saturn. And let's pull the chart in smaller so we can see what else is happening at that time in your chart. So we can realistically see, is anything going to be squaring this mark of 2342? So we go to the cardinal signs, 30, 60, 90, Eris. If we take a look closer, we do see that the planet Mars, knowing that Mars takes roughly like 5-6 weeks to transit through a sign, we know that Mars is going to get up here and will square your Saturn at one point, okay? Now, I would have to give you a date for that exactly. I don't have that because that's not what my focus was for this video. But if you want to know that, you can comment below the video and I can get that information to you. Is there anything squaring this way? Well, look at the difference from last time. Last time, Juno was right on top of Spica squaring, right? Juno is not going to be on top of Spica. It'll just be Spica squaring the Saturn and the Pluto this time, okay? Now, what about the moon's nodes? They were a really big factor last time. They were sitting right on top of your Uranus, and that's a big deal. Well, here we go. The moon's nodes are now going backwards. That's 29 degrees Gemini, which means 29 degrees in Sagittarius energy. At 29 degrees, we do have the galactic center at 27 degrees, okay? But it's not touching your galactic center, but it will be. Not right away, but in some time it will be. Now, does that mean it's going to be a horrible thing? Well, what it does mean is when we know what a south node represents. The south node means a release. We're letting something go. And because it's in the Sagittarius energy, it's about your beliefs, beliefs that you hold on to. It's your second house, valued beliefs. Okay? Beliefs around things that you want and need and value, because that's second house energy, my resources. Okay? So you're going to be releasing, and the Galactic Center is going to help you do that. It's going to add energy to it. It's going to be for all of us, by the way. Okay? It's a matter of, for anybody else listening, is where is your Galactic Center energy at? Galactic Center takes forever to move, so for everybody, you know, Galactic Center is at 26 degrees. Well, current Galactic Center is like 27 degrees. You know, it takes lifetimes for it to move a degree. So we're all going to be releasing some sort of a belief. And for you, in your chart, it's pretty easy. It's your second house. It's what you value. There are going to be things that you've outgrown. We all are. This is what COVID-19 is all about, teaching us how to reevaluate our values, because it's working in conjunction with Uranus and Taurus, which is our values. Taurus is the ruler, right, of the second house, okay? So you see the connections about values and about what we love, and Venus energy, okay? It's going to be all about that. So you're going to be releasing something, and it's a belief, right? It's your belief systems, your opinions. So what else? Is there anything else that's going to cause you stress and tension? Well, let's just talk about this, because this is really only the main thing happening, which is Pluto conjunct Saturn. That is a big deal. Because it squares this again, I'm still very much hearing, yeah, this again is talking about subconscious energy, subconscious thoughts, subconscious realm, subconscious thinking about things that you value, right? It's Venus. Venus rules Taurus. This is that second house stuff too, right? Beliefs about things that you value. It's fascinating how all that lines up. It's all Venus energy for all of us. This is really just the energy of 2020. Reprioritizing, reestablishing new values, letting go of things you've outgrown. This is a big deal, but this is tricky because it's stuff you're not aware of, because it's 12th house. Remember, 12th house is past life stuff too, folks, okay? But you also have to take into consideration you're dealing with stuff that your great-grandmother, right, and your great-grandmother's great-grandmother. Like, this is your family's lineage, your heritage. Energetic race mentality involved, okay? So a family mentality, beliefs about family. And what does that mean? It's not like, oh, we have a wrong idea. It's just that there is such an emphasis on it for your family. In your lineage, there's such a major emphasis on it. There's just healings that you are helping out with, right? There's, you know, when souls are in transition, you know, I can't speak on this like I'm some authoritarian person on it, like I know all. I don't. But I do believe that when we leave our bodies, there are many schools of thought that souls sometimes take many, many, many years before they incarnate again, before they take another body, because there's things that they process before they begin the next cycle. And each lifetime is a cycle. And so there are things that some of these individuals, some of these other souls are waiting for those things to be processed. So you going through this in this lifetime may be helping those in which you have no awareness of. All right? But on a soul level, you do. Okay? On a soul level, we have like these connections. You know, we have these complex relatedness within our tribe, within our soul family. And that's really a big picture of Cancer energy. And Cancer energy in a really micro, private ways, our personal family, our world, you know, my siblings, my brothers and sisters, right? My home, my mom and dad. But on a macro level, on a big scale, this is the public, this is humanity, this is the world, this is our race, right? The human race, the one race. So there's a lot of healing that's going on, okay? And you are intimately connected to that. And your ability to do that, your ability to maintain as best as you can. So the big question is, what will Pluto and Saturn do? Again, it's because of the squares. They create tension. They create tests. And so when we look the other way, your other 23-degree square is Eris in your 6th house. So it's thoughts about myself, right? Thoughts about who I am, not to be too self-critical, because this is the sixth house. Sixth house energy has the ability to be overly critical. And because it's Aryan energy, Aries has the ability sometimes to be very surfacey and not be willing to think down into layers, and to be really impulsive in its thoughts, okay? And to act on immediately, right? So there might be things, especially health routines, that are picked up on, but may not have longevity, right? Because that's Aries, loves starting new stuff. It's how do you tap into the Taurus energy, right? You only have a little bit of your Taurus energy in your sixth house. And it's the Taurus energy. Taurus loves to finish things. They're known for their endurance. In their minds, it's like, okay, I started this project, I need to finish it. It may take forever, but I need to finish it. They're closers. That's what the Taurus energy is. And so that's why for this individual, Scorpio rising, there's, connecting with Taurians is a big deal for them, because they filling gaps for them. They can be their rock, their place of peace. And this makes sense, right? When we just looked at your house of health, right? So healthy habits, healthy routines, right? Mental health habits, mental health routines to establish a vital, healthy body, and how that's all connected. Okay? So this is really what this is going to be about, pulling up some subconscious stuff, maybe some, pulling in maybe some of the unprocessed wounds, not only of yourself, but ancestors, and maintaining through establishing daily mental health habits that you carry through, that you don't just say, okay, I've done this and this and this and this. Did you finish them? Did you take these projects, and do you keep continuing with them? Because they're vital. Remember, that's the stability. That's the longevity. That's the endurance, is that Taurus energy. And you're going to have help, because Uranus will have been right on your descendant as well previously. All right. So I hope this video has helped. And I hope I've answered your questions about why is Pluto so strong and prominent lately? And is this for everybody? It is for everybody. Anytime a planet stands still. But for you in particular, Pluto going back and revisiting your natal Saturn, that's a big deal. And I hope I've explained it all. If I haven't, you just ask questions, comment below. Love to hear your feedback. Bye.